Hello and welcome to Badger Talks Live, which brings exciting happenings, resources, and talent from your UW flagship campus to the people of Wisconsin and beyond. My name is Haley Sissel. I'm a rising senior in the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences studying biology, originally from Rhinelander, Wisconsin. As a house fellow in the greenhouse learning community, I have had the pleasure of learning from and collaborating with today's speaker and couldn't be more thrilled to introduce him. Tom Bryan has worked with the greenhouse learning community since 2011 and is currently the program coordinator and greenhouse manager. He graduated from the Nelson Institute's Environment and Resources Ph.D. program in 2019, where he assessed environmental impacts of meals and diets. Today, he'll be giving us a behind-the-scenes peek at the Leopold greenhouse, which is the only of its kind, and discuss tips on starting your own seeds at home. Please welcome Tom Bryan.
All right. Thank you, Haley, and for that marvelous introduction. And thanks to everyone behind the scenes. And thanks for tuning in. Thanks to Haley for that wonderful introduction. There's a lot of people behind the scenes on this, and I just want to thank everyone at Badger Talks and UW Connects for making it really easy and streamlined for me to do this and bring you all into the greenhouse with me. It's a total honor to be part of this series. It's quite a lineup. I've looked up to Tom Zinnin for his outreach skills on campus for a number of years. He was the first or second Badger Talks. Mike Randall will be on here next week. Looked up to him for so much of his science education and outreach for a long time. Alfonso Morales is coming up in a couple of weeks, and he was on my Ph.D. committee in Nelson Institute. And the week after, Ben Fuda, who is my supervisor at Allen Centennial Garden, that's my other role on campus, will be here. So stay tuned for the next coming weeks. I mean, it's an incredible lineup, and I'm just super tickled to be here. And so my name is Tom Bryan, and I'm representing the greenhouse learning community today. And I'll give you a brief overview of how our greenhouse operates here, what residents use it for, and some tips for starting seeds in summer for fall crop production. So don't fear if you didn't get your garden planted this weekend. I know it was Memorial Day weekend. A lot of people were planting. I finally got to my home garden. But don't fear, a lot of fall crops or a lot of cool season crops actually do better in the fall. So if you miss this weekend for planting, don't beat yourself up. You can definitely start seeds at home in summer for fall harvest, and we'll get into a little bit about that later. There's still hope and time for you though. Okay, so part one of this talk, we're gonna have a couple parts of this. I'm gonna get up and walk around too. We're gonna have a couple cool like tech and gadget demos. Love a good tech and gadget. So part one is intro to greenhouse. So first thing, the name. I'm in a greenhouse right now, but I'm also a representative of the greenhouse learning community. So that leads to some confusion, obviously. And so I'll sometimes use greenhouse, capital G, capital H, to be a kind of shorthand for our community. I'll try to say the greenhouse community. And then when I'm just saying the word greenhouse, I should be referring to the actual greenhouse that I'm in. I know it's confusing. I'll try my best to use the names consistently. If you do notice some weird sounds going on here, that might be because all of the windows are open in the greenhouse, and there's some construction in the area. So you might hear some heavy machinery going on outside of our greenhouse here. So the greenhouse community is 92 residents that live in the top 2 floors of this building. And it's one of 11 now learning communities on campus. And I want to give a shout out to all my colleagues in the other learning communities here. We have stickers. We're very proud of all of our stickers. The 11th Learning Community Business Connect, I need your sticker to put on my sheet here. We're a great community of practitioners on campus, and we run all these sorts of communities within university housing. So my job is technically through the College of Agriculture, but I'm stationed here within university housing, which is a really unique and strong relationship between the academic side of campus within the College of Agriculture and the housing and resident life side. And I'm just really pleased to have this role. So the greenhouse community, realistically and technically speaking, it's the 92 residents that actually live here during the academic year, but we're bigger than that. I refer to our community as everyone who's lived here before. The past generations of residents, I totally see you. You are part of Greenhouse still. You are still in our community. The 600 or 700 residents that we've had living in Leopold, and then when we were in a different hall beforehand, you're still a greenhouser. Haley, who gave me an introduction, who was a house fellow last year, you don't live here anymore. You're still a greenhouser. You call Rhinelander home, but you're still a greenhouser. And it also part of the greenhouse community is all of our affiliates and partners all across campus. So we work with a lot of other people on campus to give our residents connections to other things on campus. And so to all my colleagues and affiliates, you're part of the greenhouse community too. And housing and residence life are incredible hosts to us here at Leopold. And the people within housing, my colleagues in housing, do a lot of absolutely essential, behind the scenes, often thankless, world-class work to make living on campus worthwhile and possible here. So we're a community founded on sustainability. So the other 11 communities on campus have different themes. Our theme is sustainability. And so to live here, you just have to express an interest within sustainability, and then you get to live here. And so if you were on a tour of the actual entire building and talking about the greenhouse community in general, I would hand you a very nice brochure, a one-page sheet about how awesome Greenhouse is. We have seminars in the fall and springs, all centered around sustainability, and community building exercises, tours, field trips, special access to things on campus. And so that's who we are. Where we are is we are in the lakeshore neighborhood of campus here. And so if you're familiar with campus here, we are right behind Allen Centennial Gardens, kind of by the tennis courts. This building was built about 7 going on 8 years ago now. And we, not counting the Celery Hall renovation, we are the newest residence hall on campus, newest, at least new construction. And you can't have a greenhouse without a garden. I'm sorry, that's my opinion, my personal opinion only. And so we do have a garden. I wish it was right next door, right outside the residence hall right here, but it is close, and it is a privilege to be able to call the Lakeshore Nature Preserve the home to our garden. And so I'm right around here. Memorial Union Terrace is right around here. And so our residents, our 92 residents who live here during the academic year, can walk along the Lakeshore path here and actually never have to cross a road, and then go up into here and then in past the BioCorp Prairie, and right next to the Eagle Heights Community Gardens, right in the clearing here of the Lakeshore Nature Preserve, is our quarter-acre garden. And we grow a lot of food crops to maturity out there: fruits, vegetables, nuts. It's a happening place in summer, and I just want to shout out to my colleagues in the Lakeshore Nature Preserve. They're excellent hosts to us. And also, if you're not familiar, the preserve looks like an elephant. Picnic point's the trunk, and we're kind of by the eye or the ear, just in case that helps you out. So that's pretty much, that's the end of part one, except for one brief like announcement of why learning communities are so important, and why living on campus is so important. I think we're all figuring out, or at least realizing, the importance of meaningful, deep human connections, especially in this time while we're all isolated for the greater good. We're pausing for the cause, but I know I am hankering for social interactions, a sense of community, kin, brethren, to have community with, and to share this odd lived experience with. And living on campus does that for residents. It gives them a sense of community, and living within learning communities, obviously it's in the name, does that. It turns that dial to 11 for that. And so our theme is sustainability. So folks have an interest in sustainability. So you automatically have something in common with the people that you're living here with. So end of that, on to part two of this talk, greenhouse operations. All right, so if you're an engineer or an architect, or you've ever taken apart your AC unit or even a window fan, this section is for you. So greenhouse operations. So part two, greenhouses are so cool in general, I think. They're real world houses made of glass. Actually this one isn't made of glass, it's made of acrylic. And so I'm gonna flip you around here so that you can see what I see and you don't have to look at me anymore. And we're gonna pick up and walk about the building a little bit. Not the building, walk about the room. And so first off, we'll get to a lot of things later, but the glazing, what the windows are made out of. So it's double-walled acrylic here, and acrylic. So it's really long lasting, and it's a lot sturdier than glass here. Glass has a tendency to shatter in hail, and we are on the 4th floor of a building here. And so that would be a pretty big challenge to replace all the glazing up here. And so for acrylic, we should just only have to replace it about every 30 years. So that's really nice. So I mentioned that it's double wall. You might be able to see a little bit of like blurriness or corrugation on our glazing here. And that's mainly because it has 2 layers. And so within there is air. And so that's gonna lend you some insulating properties. Not what I want right now. It's 95 in here and nice and humid. And so I'll continue walking around so you can get a sense of what this room is like. But the glazing is double walled, so it helps keep the heat in over winter. But if you notice, I do have a lot of the windows open right now. So then cold air can come in here, come in these windows, and then push out the hot air all the way up to the ridge up there. And so we're doing a thing called passive ventilation right now, where we don't have any fans on, but we're still letting outside air in to push out the hot air. So glazing is very, very important and is one of the main considerations when you're building or just operating a greenhouse. Second thing that you might be noticing is this white cloth that's covering our ceiling here. And so I have the shades pulled, or the drapes drawn, so to speak, and that blocks out about 50% of the light, and it's keeping us a little cooler in here. They are on a computer control system that we'll see later, but that helps keep the sun to an okay degree. A lot of greenhouses can get too hot, and that helps a lot for us. So the next very important consideration here, and something I'm very thankful for, is that this is computer controlled. And so this white can hanging from the ceiling here is our main interior thermostat or temperature sensor. And so that, if you follow the wires up here, everything in the roof is full of wires here. They go down to this overhead switch area, and on the other side of the wall is our computer control system. And so you don't have to be just interested in plants to want to work in a greenhouse. And a lot of our residents are engineering students. And so I'm going to take you out in the hallway here. We have a nice sign. Shout out to the previous residents who made a lot of those signs. But I'm going to take you out into the hallway here. And we do have some very nice posters from the botany department out here. But I just want to briefly show you the computer control system here. So it's a microprocessor control system that is basically your house thermostat with about 45 other features. And so right now I actually have the cooling system, the big fans turned off so you can hear me a little better. And back behind here, if you're ever an electrical engineer or interested in electrical engineering, greenhouses have a lot of really sophisticated microprocessor controls. And I'm really thankful that we have this sort of automation here, because that means I don't have to pull pulleys or yank chains to open vents, or I don't have to push switches to turn on lights. This computer control system does it all for me. And I can monitor it from even my phone. And so it keeps plants happy, and it keeps the humans that reside here happy too. It is a little bit dark in this hallway because we're trying to save some energy, because this building is not occupied right now. So, all right. We touched on ventilation. We're doing passive ventilation right now, but another key feature that a lot of people forget in their when they grow transplants at home. So I know a lot of people have gotten into gardening this season, and get some lights in the basement. You start some plants. You put down some seed. But one thing that a lot of folks forget are these fans. They're technically called horizontal airflow, or HAF, half fans, and having air flowing around your greenhouse or your basement, light rack for your vegetable starts is really, really important. It stiffens up plants a lot, and it just evens out some temperature hotspots here. So we have another one here. And while I'm over here, you get a nice view of the Microbial Sciences building, Russell Laboratories, Animal Sciences, Poultry Sciences. So our residents, when they're up in this greenhouse, they have a nice view of the buildings, the hallmark buildings of the College of Agriculture, and that really steeps them in the heritage of UW. Last but not least, in greenhouse operations, we live in Wisconsin. It gets cold. This is a leaky glass house, acrylic house, technically. We need heat, and we're very fortunate that we are plugged in to these central campus heating and cooling plants. And so right up there is our main heat pump. And so that pumps hot water through the aluminum fin tubes here. And those aluminum fins run along the entire perimeter and help keep the greenhouse warm. So we have a question that came in. What is the application process to get in here? So there's not technically an application process. Here, I'm going to set you all down while I answer this question. So there's not an application process. There is a process to go through for preferencing where students want to live. And so there's about 20 buildings that students can live on campus. And then within those buildings, there's 11 learning communities. And so it's a ranking process. You go through and you rank your learning communities, and then you go through and rank your buildings. And then you say which one you want to prefer. So we don't have like an essay or like a background check or anything like that for application. So it's preference based. We don't take into consideration students' intended major or previous high school coursework, because a lot of our residents live here because they're interested in sustainability as a lifestyle and as a hobby and something they're passionate about, not necessarily the thing they absolutely want to study. And so peculiarly, when we opened this building, we thought all the horticulture majors, all the agronomy majors, all the soil science majors are going to live here. Turns out not the case. We have 30 plus majors who live with us on average every year. So broad range of academic interests, but they're all brought together because they have a passion and interest in sustainability. Whether that aligns absolutely directly with their academic interests, that's up to them. So keep those questions coming. Please interrupt me. I will happily answer them. Speaking of residents though, we're on to part 3. What do residents do in here? That's a question I get a lot, actually, because we're the only facility like this. We're the only greenhouse on top of a residence hall that we know of in the world. There are some other colleges in the US that are building facilities like this, and there's a lot of greenhouses next to residence halls. But we're the only one so far on top of residence hall. Question came in, do you have aquaponics? I wish we had the capacity to take care of fish up here. When students are living here, that's something that a lot of residents pick up and take care of fish. We do go through the campus approval process because they are vertebrate animals and they're part of an academic program, not just pets. And so we don't have aquaponics, but we do have a really cool hydroponic system that I want to show you. So thank you for asking that question, because I absolutely love this hydroponic system. It was designed and conceptualized by, here, let me get you some better light here. There we go. Designed and conceptualized by a professor of horticulture at Twin Cities. So shout out to Dr. Tom Michaels. It's called the hydroponic salad table, and it's built out of stock lumber here. The base here is separate from the 30-gallon tank up here. And what's really nifty about this is it doesn't require any electricity, so no pumps, no filters, no heaters, anything like that. So it's really nice for a backyard or a balcony where there's not electricity. And it actually looks like this underneath. And so all these plant roots are just soaking in a nutrient bath here. And the top half of the roots are actually breathing. So they're physiologically different than the bottom layers of roots that are uptaking water and nutrients. And so this was planted by 2 residents who were in a gardening class in spring, and that had to get cut short. And so Abby and Jill, these are your plants. I've been eating a lot from this. Your kale, your basil, your mustard greens have been absolutely fantastic and delicious. It looks a little bare right now because I just harvested a ton. But if you want to know more, look up, use your favorite search engine to look up hydroponic salad table, Minnesota Twin Cities. Fantastic system. I can't say enough about how easy and hands-off this system is. After Abby and Jill, the two residents who made this and planted it, I have not watered, I have not fertilized this at all. I've just come in and harvest. It's absolutely fantastic. Can't say enough good things about that system. So thanks for your question about aquaponics. They're needy systems and they require a lot of balancing. That our focus just isn't there right now. And so technically you could put fish in these tanks but you would have to do a lot of modification to that to make it aquaponics ready. So what the heck do residents do in here? So aquaponics when there's interest. And so in general, I say there's about 3 types of crops we grow in here. The first being legacy plants. So like this Mama Jade right here, she's about 8 years old. And we had one resident live here for the first 5 years straight that this building was open. So we actually dedicated this plant to you, Joel, if you're out there. And it's a plant here to demonstrate what mature jades look like and how you can prune them to have different habits. And residents can propagate from it. So they can take leaf and stem cuttings. It's here, it lives here generation to generation of residents. And that's a legacy plant. Here a cloud must have passed. We're getting nice and light in here. The other type of plant we grow in here are basically anything residents want. So this is their greenhouse. I just help clean it and make it safe and successful for everyone. So a couple months ago, residents had to move out of here very quickly. A lot of them left plants. So this table and a half are some of the memories that I have of residents who had to leave here really, really quickly and had to go on planes or didn't have the space to take these plants. And I just am trying to keep them happy and healthy in here for eventually a reunion in fall. So residents live here. It's their greenhouse. They can grow whatever they want in here. I just help them do it, help them out with the technicalities and the specifics of it. Ooh, another legacy plant I want to show you is our orange here. So we have an orange, we have citrus. It's in this pot here with the orange label. And I get a lot of questions about insects and are we organic and how do we manage insects? And so this orange needs to go outside because it has some pests. And one of the best pesticides is rain. And so we simulate rain because a lot of insects are weak and you can just knock them off. So we simulate rain with a nice sprayer, but it's set on harsh spray. And so right around here, this orange is trying to set some fruit. So it's putting a lot of energy and water and nutrition into the vasculature that's leading up to this fruit. And so the insects are smart and they feed on there. And so every time I'm here, I just take this water bottle and I just kind of give them a little super soaker action and just knock them off a little bit and knock them back. There we go. hopefully that'll be a happy, healthy orange for fall. And that's why I say I want to take it outside, because then the rain can do that for me. So the third type of plant that we grow in here are crops. So you don't see a lot of mature crops in here, or even transplants. That's because we took all of our transplants out to our garden out in Eagle Heights. So this bench, that bench, and the bench on the end had about 2,000 to 3,000 vegetable, herb, flower, and fruit transplants here. And we actually had a couple other benches too, full of them. And those have gone out to our garden out in Eagle Heights. This bench was full of like 400 peppers that we grow for other organizations on campus, and also we're right next to a 600 plot community garden. And so we try to do the right thing, and we have this privilege of this greenhouse. Let's grow for other people who don't have greenhouses or can't afford to buy plants. And part of gardening and part of being able to garden and having access to a space like this is generosity. There's a lot of abundance in gardening. Often you have too much zucchini. If you've had too much zucchini, you know what that feels like. Maybe you have too much tomatoes, too many tomatoes. You raised 200 of them, you only have spots for 50. That's the type of transplant raising we do here. So a question came in: what relationship do we have with academic entities on campus? So I am that bridge between those. I am an employee of the College of Agriculture, and I work in the academic affairs realm, but I'm stationed within housing. And so I can help bridge that gap for residents living in housing who are looking for contacts or advice within academic affairs. And so I'm another person that they can turn to for that help. So another thing I wanted to show you all that I forgot to in greenhouse operations was the quote unquote head house, or the potting up area. And so when residents move in here, this is their greenhouse. This is all theirs. We have a couple different types of potting mix. We have amendments, soil, perlite, vermiculite, and it's all there for them. And there's some educational signage, of course, about what it is and how to use it. So for example, this is sand. Water holding capacity of sand, very low. Whereas the water holding capacity of calcined clay granules is medium. So the decision of what potting mix to use is one of the first that residents come in here and grapple with, and start to learn hands-on the science of horticulture, the science of growing plants, and what's best for their plants. And then everything on this shelf is essentially plastic or clay that they can use to help grow their plants. So trays, flats, inserts, this is all for residents of this greenhouse. And we have our fertilizer shelf here too. So we have chemically derived slow release pellets, organically derived slow release pellets, 2 or 3 types of organically derived liquid fertilizer, and then a concentrate of liquid chemical derived fertilizer for residents to use. If anyone knows of a liquid or pelleted fertilizer that is not, or that is derived only from plants, so a kind of quote unquote vegan fertilizer, let me know, because a lot of residents ask me for that, and I have a couple sources, but they're not great, because most of the time liquid organic fertilizer is essentially just pureed fish, and sometimes that ethically conflicts with our residents. And Most of the time, if you look at the back of the bag of organically derived fertilizer pellets, it's kind of a witch's brew of bones and blood and feathers and guano. And so if you know of one that's 100% plant-based, let me know. I'm very curious to see some gardening expertise. So question came in, most people who live here, are most people who live here first year students? Yes, but learning communities generally have a higher percentage of second, third, fourth, and fifth year students living here than the general population within housing. And we also generally have a higher percentage of international students who live here. So it's not a requirement. The only area that is only first year students within university housing is the Bradley Learning Community. Another question came in, do you need help harvesting at Eagle Heights? Not yet. One, because we're still, here, let me turn you around so I can talk to you all. Yeah. So do we need help harvesting at Eagle Heights? No, not yet, because we're not pulling in harvests yet. And we can't facilitate large scale volunteer activities there until the Lakeshore Nature Preserve starts doing those, because we garden within the Lakeshore Nature Preserve. Also, nice view of the greenhouse hat here. But mid to late August, assuming we can facilitate large scale volunteering out there, we have a potato field out there being raised for the food pantry on campus, Eagle Heights Community Center. We're raising for them, and anyone who helps harvest, and anyone who needs it, who expresses a need towards us. We have, probably about a fifth, or between a fifth and a sixth of an acre of potatoes. And if the weather cooperates, if the potatoes grow well, we should have between 3,000 and 5,000 pounds of potatoes coming out of there. So thank you for your questions. This is phenomenal. Keep them coming. I'm going to switch you around here, and we're going to get to the tech gadgets. Because if you think growing plants is easy business, or it's an ancient art, people have been growing plants for thousands of years. Oh, it's so casual. Oh, I could just do it. It's fairly straightforward. Sometimes that's the case, but if you want to grow them in a very scientific process, we are at a university, we can do them do it in a very specific way. And so one thing that you'll very likely need if you're going to do seed starting for fall crop production are artificial lights for indoors. And so I have an artificial light here. I generally recommend the kind of long 4-foot fluorescent lights for a shelving system at home. This is a 24-watt LED that's it's actually purple, because physiologically plants really only need red and blue. There's some technicalities within there, but how much light do plants need is a very complex question, and is actively being researched in many parts of the globe. And so how bright is it in this greenhouse is something we can measure. How bright is it in your basement is something you can measure too. There's a lot of phone apps that do this, that are measuring brightness or luminosity. I have a very fancy posh flux meter here that's actually measuring the number of photons that are hitting it. And so the reading coming off of it is around 350. So it's bright, but not terribly bright. And so, but if I have some artificial light and I go over that sensor, now it's at about 1400. So even though greenhouses are bright, artificial light is in almost every case necessary to grow a lot of crops and nice high quality transplants. And so I'm going to set you down here and flip around, because I want to show you some physical things that might help you, in addition to the artificial lights that we talked about over there, how to make it easy on yourself to grow seeds at home for fall production. So one thing is, a lot of people forget about fertilizer. I save these containers for my fertilizer for easy sprinkling, or you can kind of have them in this and measure them out with teaspoons. But I like to be quick about things, and sprinkling them in with these is really nice. So starting seeds indoors, I'm going to use the brassica family or the mustard family or kind of the broccoli family. There's a lot of names for them. So I have some broccoli here. Broccoli is one of my favorite vegetables, especially in fall. Broccoli likes it a little cooler, likes some nice water availability. And the colder it gets, the more sugars the plant accumulates, making them sweeter. And so a lot of folks argue that summer-grown carrots are not as sweet as fall-grown carrots, or broccoli. That applies to broccoli too, that the plants are accumulating sugars as kind of an antifreeze. And so when you look at a seed packet, one essential thing for fall production is days to harvest. So some seed packets have it, some label it pretty obviously. So this broccoli is 85 days to harvest. So that means I need to put that transplant in the ground at least 85 days before I want to harvest it. That's not counting seed starting. And so that changes even within broccoli. So all broccoli is not broccoli. So this broccoli is 90 days. This one's 92, this one's 95. Ooh, here's a nice quick one. 71, this is solstice broccoli, 71 days. So that's fairly quick. When you're going into fall though, the days are getting shorter in terms of day length. And the days, the sun is getting less intense. So even though it says you should be able to harvest this in 71 days, I'd maybe give it 75, 80 if you can. You'll likely get a harvest before that. Question came in, do we have any microgreens? I know I'm running low on time, but I gotta show you this. Not right now, but during the academic year, one thing that residents can plug into, sorry, I'm poking at the camera, that's the reverse here. One thing that residents can plug into here is we have a partnership with the dining halls here on within university housing, and we generally grow little baby sunflower shoots for them. And so generally bench 9 here is reserved for 12 flats of like hardcore, intensive, high intensity rotation sunflower shoot production for the dining halls on campus. So that's ready to go. That's something that residents can do immediately once they arrive here, is plug into that and start being a farmer and supplying everyone else who lives in housing with food here. Ooh, great question that came in. Disadvantages, advantages of growing things from transplants versus direct seeding. So if you're unfamiliar, direct seeding is a technique where you take seeds and you put them right in the ground, and the vegetables pop out from there, and then you harvest them when they're done. Whereas transplants, you raise them in kind of an artificial, generally indoor environment. And then when they're kind of young toddlers or teenagers, you can take them out of their cozy little environment and then put them out into the real world. The biggest advantage, especially in this context, where we only have like 120 frost-free days a year, is that you get a head start on the season. And so for really warm-loving crops like tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, squash, I generally recommend transplanting those if you have a place to grow seedlings indoors, because then you can get that that like 40 extra days of growing inside here in Wisconsin, and then put your plants outdoors, and then they can have a nice head start to the growing season and get grown right away. The other thing that is traditionally transplanted out here or up here in Wisconsin is onions, because onions take like 120 days to harvest a lot of times. And so if they can spend as much time as they can maturing inside in the greenhouse, then the more likely you are to get a bigger, healthier sized onions out in the field. And so a lot of folks like to grow their seedlings indoors in like egg cartons and things like that. I generally don't recommend that unless that's the only thing you can do. Generally, I'd recommend something like this. And you can get these at a lot of garden centers, and they help out a lot. Also, I know I'm about out of time. This is my last thing. This is probably the lowest tech thing we have in this very high tech greenhouse, is a very pointed watering can. And you can find these everywhere. And if you have some soil and you really want to be targeted about where you're watering it, just poke a little hole in there. And the main guy who got me into plants like 10 years ago taught me this trick. This is one of the best watering cans. Also, if you have siblings, I'm the youngest of two. So, well, I have 6,000 other things I want to talk to you about in this greenhouse. It's my favorite room on campus. We have a lot of other greenhouses on campus. It's a huge privilege to be able to work in this greenhouses. Greenhouses to me are really sacred, protected places that are really, really special. And we should treat them as a university. We should treat university greenhouses really kindly and special, and they're very unique. And I'm very happy to work in this one that is 100% geared towards undergraduate engagement and education. So eventually we'll be open to the public during a large-scale science outreach event. If you can make it there, again, there's 6,000 other things I want to talk to you about in here. I love this place, but that's my time. I've been Tom Bryan, program coordinator for the Greenhouse Learning Community in Leopold Hall, working in university housing. Another huge thank you to UW Connects and Badger Talks for hosting this and making it easy for me. It was my pleasure being live on the airwaves with you. Good growing.